What's up, scholars? Noor here, and welcome to Book of Showtime, Chapter 67, the 2-year anniversary special. As always, if you enjoy these videos, be sure to leave a like and share with your friends. And if you have a topic you'd like for me to cover for Book of Showtime, be sure to leave it in the comment section down below, or anywhere you can reach me on social media or the Book of Showtime Discord. So here we are, guys, Chapter 67. Wow, the 2-year anniversary special. I'm really excited for this chapter. I've been thinking about this chapter for probably most of the year, to be honest. I was just been so excited about this entire thing. And it's insane to think that this is chapter 67, because the first year anniversary was chapter 28, meaning that we've done almost 40 chapters since last August. This isn't even including the sub chapters, mind you. And I just think that's amazing. It's all thanks to you guys for supporting me through so many ups and downs with my health, with technical issues, with YouTube taking down my channel a few times, so much nonsense, but we're still here, we're still pumping out content, and I'm happy to be doing Book of Showtime. Guys, we've also recently passed the 60 subscriber mark here on the channel, and I just want to thank everybody again for all the support that they've given me. We almost have a chapter for every subscriber, so thank you guys a ton for doing this. I don't know what I'll do when I get to 100, but I'll definitely do something special. I'm very optimistic about the future of this channel, because there's a lot of things that we can do. There's a lot of things that I would love to do that I'll be talking about in this video, so stay tuned. And it's just been so fun doing Book of Showtime. I really enjoy working on these videos and seeing the feedback. It just always makes me really happy. Also have a handful of chapters in the pipeline that I can tease right now. If you take a look at the screen, while none of these have a solid release date, they are things that I'm working on, and as always, your suggestions and talking points take priority. In last year's anniversary chapter, I shared with you guys a personal journey and showed that I had gotten to under 200 pounds, and today I have another goal to share too. This one carrying a lot more weight. On July 12th at 12:51 a.m., I surpassed 1 year of sobriety. Whereas working out was fun and getting to 200 pounds was relatively easy, staying clean for a year was not easy and not fun. But in the long run, I think I'll benefit more from this than the weight loss, and I'm more proud of myself for reaching this milestone than anything. And it's been the toughest thing I've ever done, but I'm really happy to be able to share this achievement with you. I had a lot of vices, which is why my health has been poor the last 2 years. I'm still in the recovery phase, believe it or not. But if you ever feel that you're too far gone, too beyond repair, don't worry, you can always improve and get better. And if you're ever in a dark place, don't ever hesitate to reach out to me, as I've been in the deepest pits and I'm still here. So thank you for listening to my story. I love you all for supporting me, and let's get into a stacked chapter. So today's chapter is going to compose of 2 parts, one where I review early Book of Showtime chapters and one where I answer questions you guys have left me. This is a good chunk of the chapters I've done leading up to the 1st year anniversary, so let me know what you guys think about what's changed since then, and let's begin. Way back in chapter 1, Book of Showtime began with a barbershop question asking if Steph Curry was the greatest point guard of all time. I still stand by this claim that he's the GOAT point guard, and while he's not the baby-faced assassin he once was, he is still a very elite player and a top 15 player all time, no doubt. I think the Warriors dynasty is firmly over, as Klay Thompson is gone and Draymond Green gets suspended habitually, and the 2 timeline experiment failed. I think that after 2023 they should have traded Klay and Draymond and stuck with the younger players, but now they're stuck with not a lot of draft capital, not a lot of anything else other than Steph Curry. In chapter 2, we went over the wrong game of the year winners. The 2 winners since Elden Ring in 2022 and Baldurs Gate in 2023 absolutely deserve it. And while I haven't played more than a few hours of either game, I think that Baldurs Gate was a tremendous game and an important game to the industry, as it set a new standard for how you really develop a game, how you really take your time and nurture a game. I would have loved to see Alan Wake 2 win, but I understand why Baldurs Gate 3 took home the honors. As for Elden Ring, as much as I loved God of War Ragnarok, I think where Elden Ring clears are the massive deltas that exist within the franchise between installments. The things that have changed from God of War to God of War Ragnarok aren't as massive as the changes from spiritual predecessors Dark Souls 3 and Sekiro to Elden Ring, and I think that's a bigger factor in evaluating greatness. Also, now that I've sat down and played the first Last of Us for myself, the second one seems even worse now. It's even less deserving of Game of the Year. In chapter 3, we discussed who the GOAT of WWE was. I'm still rolling with Taker being the GOAT and Orton right behind him, but the issue to me with Randy is his health, as I think he's on borrowed time at this point. I think the consensus is if Randy Orton can stay healthy, in 3 or 4 years, I say he would clear The Undertaker in basically every metric. It's also not too far-fetched to say that in a few years, Seth Rollins will be up there with the all-time greats. The only argument against Rollins is, similar to Randy Orton, his health and that his tenure in WWE isn't as long as Undertaker or Randy Orton. Some people might say, well, what about Roman Reigns? But I think while he's a huge star and has put on some great matches, showing up every 3 months for one match just doesn't do it for me. Chapter 4 was our first installment of sequel, remake, or reboot. Out of all the games covered, Jak and Daxter hasn't gotten anything new. Castlevania hasn't dropped any new games, but it did get a renewal for its Netflix series, and it crossed over with V Rising and has a Dead by Daylight crossover on the way, which is pretty cool. Onimusha got a Netflix series, but nothing regarding games has come out. And finally, Army of Two hasn't received any news on any front. Out of all of these games, I think Army of Two is the only one that's unfortunately going to stay dead, which is a shame because I think Army of Two was a really fun game. It wasn't anything special, but it was a fun co-op excursion, and that's what it wanted to be. In Chapter 5, we talked about the worst Call of Duty of all time. This is the only chapter I've done that hasn't aged well on any level because Modern Warfare 3 came along and was way worse on virtually every level. The campaign was complete steaming garbage, the zombies mode was boring, unfulfilling, and had no character whatsoever, and the multiplayer was just trying to undo everything that Modern Warfare 2 did quote-unquote wrong, which meant it pandered to its fans and didn't innovate in any way. Black Ops Cold War is a very flawed game, but at the end of the day, it's still very serviceable. In Chapter 7, we talked about Fortnite improvements we would like to see. Out of everything that we wanted to come true, I think the bloom has been reduced slightly, but I also just might be more acclimated to it. I mean, I've been playing Fortnite for 3 years now, so I think I just got used to it. I don't really complain about it. It's still there, but it's just not as bad as it used to be. In Chapter 12, I ranked every single Call of Duty Zombies mode. I'm actually going to put Black Ops Cold War in the 2 spot and push Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2 to the 3 and 4 spots on my list, and that's because I played a ton of Black Ops Cold War Zombies this year with my brother, the Dark Man, and it's grown on me a ton, to the point where I actually enjoy the round-based modes more than Outbreak. I even had multiplayer uninstalled for a while since I had no interest in doing Outbreak. In Chapter 17, we did a Resident Evil tier list. The two changes here are Resident Evil 6 going into the B tier and Darkside Chronicles graduating from not played to F, as I feel it's the worst Resident Evil game, worse than Operation Raccoon City, yes. I tried to play with our good friend and contributor Venetia, and man, I can tolerate the game being slow paced for a light gun game, but my god, the camera work was some of the worst I've ever seen. We couldn't even finish the darn game, it was a mess. In Chapter 18, we went over more WWE booking decisions we would change. In hindsight, Cody losing was 100% the right call, as it turned Jey Uso, Solo Sikoa, and even LA Knight into much bigger stars as a result. And Cody winning at WrestleMania 40, it was just the dawn of a new era in WWE. You had the new sale with Endeavor, Roman, it's gone, his reign is over, everything, there's so much that's about to happen with WWE. Triple H is firmly in control, it's a new era, and Cody winning to begin it was perfect. We all hated Cody losing in real time, but now looking back at how things played out since, I would say that Cody losing here was absolutely the right move. In Chapter 20, we went over the essence of a remake. A couple of months following the release of Chapter 20, I finally finished Dead Space's remake, and it was a perfect game through and through. I thought it was amazingly recreated for next gen, and Isaac Clarke's voice was added in such a seamless and natural way. It followed my personal philosophy of how a remake should be done, preserving the experience and legacy of the original while enhancing it for modern times. Now, I get it that it might be easier to do that for a game released in 2008, but trust me, some developers might find ways. I also want to take some time to call out the existence of The Last of Us Part 1. Now, that game looks great, and I imagine it plays much better than the original, but the idea of this game in general seems borderline predatory to me. Now, the game looks great, and I imagine it plays better than the original, but the idea of this game's existence in general seems predatory to Last of Us fans, as I imagine that's the people who were first in line to buy it. You want to remake The Last of Us? Fine. Okay, sure, alright. You know, it wasn't even 10 years old, but what the heck, why not? But charging $70 for a remake of a 2013 game, which you remastered in 2015 and charged $50 for DLC included, just seems a little bit wrong, especially when you look at the fact that it's missing the multiplayer mode entirely. The game runs on the same engine as Last of Us 2, but Last of Us 2 was only $60. It seems like Naughty Dog is just preying on their base. Now, the argument you guys might make is, no, Last of Us Part 1 came to PC. That may be true, and I think that's cool, but a ton of people have PlayStations. I don't know anyone who does not have a PlayStation, to the point where if you really wanted to play Last of Us, you would have already played it. I played The Last of Us Remastered earlier this year, and it's fine. You can go into GameStop right now and get it for under 10 bucks. Okay, rant over. It's been a while since we attacked The Last of Us. In Chapter 22, we built a wish list for Mortal Kombat 1. Now, at this point in time, I haven't touched Mortal Kombat 1 yet. I might just hold out until it comes to the Game Pass, but I can go over who did and did not make it. Nitara did make it into the game, and while Megan Fox didn't exactly set the world on fire with her performance, I think that was the casting that made a lot of sense. And it also was just, look, I'm fine with seeing one of my favorite characters make it, and that was just really cool. Shunjinko also made it in, albeit as a cameo, which that's also cool as well. Amy Starlight didn't mention it for spoiler reasons at the time, but she did want Movado in the game. Don't ask me why she wanted that. And Movado did come to the game as a cameo, so Amy got her wish. And my oldest brother Dennis asked for Quan Chi, and Quan Chi also made it in as DLC, albeit as a fully fledged character. In Chapter 23, we did a Call of Duty tier list. The changes I made were Black Ops Cold War going from F to C, and what I'm realizing is that the C tiers are the more inconsistent Call of Duties, where one mode will shine way more than the others and almost carries the score I would give them. Like, let's look at World War II and Infinite Warfare. Both of those games had tremendous campaigns. The Zombies mode were so-so. I mean, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good either, and the multiplayer was serviceable or subpar. I also lowered Black Ops 4 from C to D, as while I think the Zombies mode is much better than I remember it being, the multiplayer is still odd. I just never really felt the multiplayer, and Blackout was not that good. Warzone just outclasses it to me. I placed Advanced Warfare in the B tier because it wasn't as inconsistent as the other Call of Duties. All the modes were good to great. I've also placed the original Modern Warfare 3 in the A tier. I think it's an A tier game. I enjoyed replaying the campaign last year, and it was very content rich when it was all said and done. By the way, does anyone want to play the Special Ops in Modern Warfare 3? I have Modern Warfare 3 and all the DLC installed, but I just don't have anybody to play with because no one else has all the DLC, and the DLC never goes on sale. So if you have all the DLC for Modern Warfare 3, hit me up, alright? Hit me up. Finally, I've added the new Modern Warfare 3 and placed it firmly in the F tier. I've spoken a ton about how bad this game is, so I'm just going to move on. In Chapter 25, we did a first impressions video for Street Fighter 6, Diablo 4, and Amnesia: The Bunker. Since I made that chapter, I played Diablo 4 for about 2 more weeks before uninstalling it, and Street Fighter 6, I played every now and then, but it too is uninstalled. My heart is just not in fighting games like it once was. I usually keep fighting games installed for my friends, but I don't really hang out with my friends as much anymore, so naturally I just don't play fighting games that much. As for Diablo 4, I just can't play ARPGs like that anymore. Maybe once every 5 years or so. I also can't really play them by myself. They get a little boring and kind of lonely, so I uninstalled Diablo 4 pretty fast. It's a good game. It's a great game. I love the character customization, the design, the world, but I'm just not that into it. In Chapter 26, I did a tier list for every Treyarch Zombies map. So I've made quite a bit of changes from this list to the original. Mauer der Toten will graduate from F to B, which I learned one key thing about that map playing with my brother. And by the way, I think playing Black Ops Cold War with him just made the game better to me. Playing with someone you love hanging out with, he's an awesome man, electric figure. In fact, here's some pictures of us. Gangsters don't die, he's living proof. But I learned one thing about Mauer der Toten which completely changed the map for me, and now I think it's a really good map. Forsaken is also going into the B tier as well, I think as one of the best wonder weapons in Zombies history, and Firebase is going into the C tier. As far as the motions go, I'm dropping Ascension from C to D, as I feel that that's a map that's only fun with 3 or more players. I'm also dropping Alpha Omega from B to C for reasons I don't have time for today, possibly in an ensuing subchapter, but there's a lot about that map that I don't really gel with that much. Finally, we arrive at Chapter 28, the first year anniversary special. My friend Cynthia asked me what my top 2 RPGs of all time were. Like a Dragon 8 has actually pushed Yakuza 7 from this spot, as I feel it's such an amazing game and probably the greatest send-up I've ever seen for a character since Logan in 2017. For the record, the other game on the top 2 was Mass Effect 2, which is still a fantastic game. Vinny had asked me what my top 5 underrated things were, and last year I said Brandon Nimmo is underrated, and now I think he's even more underrated than ever, as he's been one of the best full-time outfielders in the National League this season, and he didn't even make the All-Star team. It's slanderous. It's actually a conspiracy against the Mets. I'm starting to buy into that. I don't think MLB likes the Mets. Alright scholars, now it's time for the community portions part of this chapter. You guys gave me a bunch of questions, and I'm excited to answer all of them as best I can today. So first off, my best friend Alex asks, why are you so toxic and what is your favorite Resident Evil movie? Alex and I play a ton of Dead by Daylight together, and that's why she's asking if I'm toxic. I am not toxic, for the record. I just employ a flamboyant brand of gamesmanship that, when you're not as good as me, you just can't comprehend it. But one day, Alex, one day you'll reach great heights and you'll see what it's like to be elite at Dead by Daylight. As a kid growing up, Extinction was my favorite, and I also thought it was the best in the series, but now as an adult, I actually feel that the original one is the best, and it's also my new favorite. I like that while it's not carbon cut from the games, it does get the gist of Resident Evil correct, with Umbrellas being the masterminds behind the T-Virus, the bioweapons, Raccoon City as the backdrop, a contained setting, things like that. I spoke about this at length in chapter 45, so make sure to check that video out. Venetia says, in the 2000s, Capcom was known for using celebrities in their Onimusha series, starring actors like Takeshi Kaneshiro, Yusaku Matsuda, and Jean Reno. I hope I'm saying everybody's name right. It might be Jean Reno. Oh man. Which actors would you like to see featured in a Capcom action horror series? I think Ken Watanabe would be awesome to see in an action horror series. He's a lot older now, so maybe like a Barry Burton type role where he's like the veteran of the team. I think that would be fitting. He's always played like those tragic hero characters, so I think he would thrive in this environment. I also think that Tom Cruise would be a really good Leon Kennedy just off his physical abilities alone. I always felt like Leon was the most talented character just off his physical traits and his training, and Tom Cruise, basically, it's like a real-life Leon Kennedy. He's at the peak of his human fitness. He has insane core strength. I think he can pull it off, and he also has the range to do it. I know he does a lot of like serious movies and spy thrillers, but just off of his appearance in Tropic Thunder alone, I think he has the range to pull off Leon. The only detraction is that he's a lot older than what you'd want from someone playing Leon, but hey, we got that lame de-aging tech now. Did you guys ever see The Irishman? That technology did not work. Vinny also says, I'm going to formally ask sexiest horror villains and antagonists. If Kayako say... I'm not going to say her last name. I don't want to butcher any more Japanese names out here. If Kayako isn't one, then you're wrong. I did make an entire chapter for this question because I just had to. Vinny made a big tier list, and I was like, you know what? I don't think I would do it justice in this chapter, but I'll still share what I originally had written up. Now, sex appeal is subjective, but yes, Kayako would have been on that list. I like him pale, but that weird death whale might get old. That's with the hair she'd leave all over the house. I don't know if this is a girl thing, but a woman used to live in my house, and she would leave her hair on the wall after she'd shower, and come to find out, I thought that was just her doing that, but that's a thing I guess a lot of girls do, so I don't know if I want Kayako living with me. You guys are also about to learn about my taste in women, I always thought Tiffany from Bride of Chucky was a babe. Yes, the doll, the Bride of Chucky. Maybe because I think Jenny Tilly is hot, and Jenny Tilly herself does appear in it, and she's hot. But look, I said what I said. I'm also a huge Roxanne Wolf fan. I just love her design. She's one of the best designed characters, if not the best designed character in the Five Nights at Freddy's universe, and I just love her voice as well and her personality. She's a great character. I want a preference. I'm not a furry, alright? But she is one of two exceptions, but I'm not a furry. I'm fighting the allegations. It's been an ongoing war for years, alright? The jihad is never over. Amanda Young from the Saw series has been my horror crush for a while. There's something about a mess. I don't know what it is. Yes, she's a criminal. Yes, she did drugs. Yes, she murdered people. And yeah, she cuts herself. But look, I can fix her, alright? I got my issues too. She's beautiful the way she is, but I can look the other way on her past, and maybe we'd have something special, I think I could have saved her from Hoffman, alright? I wouldn't have her in that situation. So Entity has a few questions, and I'll just reveal them as we go. They first start off by saying, I got a few crossover themed queries for you. Couldn't just say questions, you had to be different. Also, woo, 2 years. Thanks, Entity. And Entity, thanks a lot, though. You've been a tremendous supporter for, even before Book of Showtime, dude. You've been amazing, so thanks for all the support these last 2 years. They first asked if you can shove Alan Wake into any other game series, what would it be? If Entity had asked this last year, I would have said Dead by Daylight or Fortnite, and wouldn't you know, he's in both now. It's surreal to me that Alan Wake went from this cult classic game on Xbox that like nobody played to a bona fide household name competing for Game of the Year honors all over the place. I'm so happy. As to a series I'd like to see him in, I'd go with Smash Bros or Multiverses, as I think he'd be a really interesting guy to have amongst all these like heroes and swordsmen and magicians and creatures. It's like, here's a guy with a flashlight and a light switch. His stages in Smash Brothers though, they would go hard. With all the original tracks they have in the anime games, it would be awesome. It could be like Delfino Plaza, where you travel to various parts of the map and then fight on them. You can easily do that with Bright Falls, going from the Oh Dear Diner to the Cauldron Lake to the Bird Lake Cabin and more. Sokka could potentially be an Echo character as well, so yeah, I would have to say Smash Brothers for sure. But Multiverses would be a nice consolation because I feel like the characters have more personality and they interact with each other and they have voices, so I feel like he would fit a lot better in Multiverses, but Smash Brothers is a better game, so let's see. Well, I mean, I can go either way. Entity then asks, what fighting game series do you think would be the best setting for a bunch of wrestlers to show up in? Obviously, Tekken has New Japan Pro Wrestling crossovers and has King, but which series do you think would work the most for just a full-on invasion of wrestlers? This is the most left field pick, but I'd say the Ultimate Muscle games. Those games are really fun and over the top, and I know they aren't fighting games per se, but they're also too wild to be considered just wrestling games in my opinion. Seeing a WWE versus Ultimate Muscle game would be super silly but super amazing. Imagine hearing Randy Orton scream RKO or Seth Rollins screaming The Stomp. It's awesome. I don't recall what chapter I spoke about this style of game before, Ultimate Muscle, but it's this weird genre where it's not quite a traditional wrestling game, but not quite a traditional fighting game either. It's like they both mix together. Def Jam is like that, Power Stone is like that, Clash of Ninjas is like that, Urban Reign is like that. Where has that genre gone? You know, there's a lot of genres that are just lost to time, and I don't know what you would call that genre. It's four friends beating the crap out of each other. Amazing genre. It's a beautiful genre. We need it back. Gang Beasts is as close as it gets to that style of game, but really, that's the genre that's dead. Entity finally says, thoughts on Ratatouille as a video game. I can never, that's a tongue twister name, dude. And some of the other movie tie-in games of that generation like Cars or WALL-E. Now don't get mad, but I haven't played any of those games, and I really never played any movie tie-in games of that era, and I also have never seen any of the movies. I'm serious, I've never seen Cars, I've never seen WALL-E, I've never seen Ratatouille. There's a lot of movies that I thought as a kid, I'm like, nah, I'm too grown to watch these movies, but now it's like, I would definitely watch it. I think I'm about to watch Coraline the weekend of this recording. I did, however, play a ton of the James Bond games. Those were fantastic. I sank a lot of time into Enter the Matrix as a kid, which I don't know why, but I always think about going and playing that game for some reason. Maybe that's telling me something. Also, I know on last year's anniversary chapter, our good friend Matt from FTI said that he really dug the Flushed Away game, which I have seen that movie and I remember liking it. So there's that. I haven't played the game, but I did see the movie and it was good. 3Flux asks, what's your favorite anime game? Mine's Ultimate Ninja Storm 4. You know what's funny? I watched my friends Zorky and Amy play Ultimate Ninja Storm 4, and the graphics look so amazing that I went out and brought the game. I played like the first hour or two of the story, and I just never played it again. But, you know, I am playing through the Naruto games in the Discord streams, so make sure to check those out when I do get back to them. But as for your question, it easily has to be Fist of the North Star Lost Paradise. Probably one of my favorite RGG games, but it still suffers from the same issues the other games have, where the final boss, 1, isn't believable, and 2, you also beat them earlier in the story. The 2 Judgment games have that exact same issue as well. I never understood it. I'm not a big Fist of the North Star fan, but I loved this game, I enjoyed the memes, and the live action movie was very silly but fun. Sorry, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to blow out the microphone again. I know I blew it out on the previous chapter with the EA big, but I'm not going to do it here. But hey, listen, if anybody wants to watch some of the Fist of North Star, maybe even the anime or the movies, you know, I'm totally down for that. So if anyone wants to get into that with me, let me know. Maybe we'll start having some more movie nights in the server. So Amy Starlight first asks, what's your biggest goal with Book of Showtime, or a dream project you never got to do or are still excited to do in the future? Alright, so while this is not a loaded question per se, it is a deep question, and I do have a loaded answer for it. My goal with Book of Showtime is really just to spark fun debates with people, get different perspectives, and also turn people on to new things. I know a lot of people in the Book of Showtime Discord are not into sports, but I do like doing sports-themed chapters. I also want to create a fun, safe place where everyone can be passionate about the things they like without any fear of, like, hostilities. As for dream projects I've never done, a lot of those were scrapped long before they even got started when I quit streaming, but I really wanted to meet up with more internet friends and kind of continue the lore I was building. But obviously, like I said, I quit streaming, so a lot of that had to be put to bed. But I enjoyed the writing process for some of the scripts I cooked up. As for projects I'm still excited to do, interviews, which I mentioned last year, I would still love to do some interviews with community members when the time is right. So that we help each other grow, and it would also be a really fun, easy way to promote a huge project, which is also a way of me saying if anyone's interested in doing such a thing, reach out to me and we'll get talking. I'm also thinking of doing gameplay focused videos where I go one-on-one with someone in a retro game or even a modern game, but I prefer to do the retro stuff. So again, hey, if anybody wants to smoke, I don't think nobody's better than me. I think we can do that as well. I'd mix the episode in with a brief retrospective beforehand too, so it's infotainment, as the kids would say, infotainment. One last thing, what I might do is have people send in, I guess, editorial pieces. Like back in chapter 18, I had my friend Ben, hey, that rhymes, give his 2 cents on Cody losing at WrestleMania, and I read what he had texted me. But if anyone has a microphone and wants to do VO and send that in for a topic that they suggest, or are open to me consulting them on such affairs, that would be awesome too. Amy then asked also if you can write or direct any live action video game adaptation, what would it be, and do you have any cool or unique ideas to bring to them? It's interesting that you asked me about a live-action game adaptation because your sister asked something similar for last year's anniversary, and as I recall, I went with Rainbow Six. But this time around, and I'm not saying this because you asked me, but since I first got into Dead Rising with Dead Rising 2, I wanted to do a TV series for Dead Rising 2, single season, and the reason I would love to do it is because of how I'd do the location and the zombies. One thing I would love to do is have a sense of continuity as time went on. Now, obviously, when you play a Dead Rising game, when you go between areas, the zombies refresh. But I wanted to set it up so that the first few episodes would have a ton of zombies, just a sea of zombies. And the later episodes will only have a few zombies walking around the malls or casinos. As you know, Chuck is going to be killing zombies. All the other survivors are going to be killing zombies. A lot of things are going to be happening. So I think that would be very interesting to portray on screen, in addition to all the psychopath fights and story changes that influence the map. Showing Fortune City fall apart would be very intriguing. So my oldest brother Dennis gives me a few questions, beginning with, is Bully 2 ever going to happen? This is a game I can say has the case of, if it was going to happen, it would have happened by now. I ranked the original Bully as the best one and done game of all time, and I think it's going to stay one and done. I think deep down inside, everyone knows that Rockstar struck gold and they just won't be able to replicate that magic, and I think they know that too. Now, if the success of Hogwarts Legacy is anything to go by, there's still a market for doing schoolwork and saving the day. I also think that Rockstar doesn't see any long-term money in a Bully 2, as it's obvious they milked Grand Theft Auto 5 for everything it is worth, and they're going to do the same for 6. I personally believe we won't see another GTA game after 6 for maybe 15 years minimum. I mean, you see how long they milked 5. After 6, man, it's going to be a long time before we see 7. Next, he says, Bronny James, this is going to be a travesty. Look, I think he'll be a decent role player at minimum. He has the physical gifts and serviceable upside, but it's going to be really hard because he's the son of literally the greatest basketball player of all time. No matter what he does, he's always going to live in his dad's shadow, but hopefully he can just focus on being the best player that he can be and, carve out a nice little career for himself. I know LeBron James would love it if Bronny could emerge as a 3-and-D player, though. Finally, he says, Deadpool and Wolverine, nothing much to say but thank the heavens. I'll be honest, I'm not that excited for this movie. I'll watch it when it comes to streaming since the movie theater by me shut down. I'm still heartbroken over that. I have a feeling the movie will be good. I know that it's getting some suspect early reviews, but they also said that the first Venom movie was like abysmal, and that was like one of the best superhero movies of the last 5 years, not even BSing. Was it the last 5 years? Hold on. I gotta look up real quick. When did Venom come out? That is 20. Oh my goodness. I said last 5. Okay, so I was close though. I mean, last 6 years. But Venom was a really good movie. Man, 2018 was so long ago, dude. Wow. It is nice though to have like a long break from the MCU movies. They've been a bit pedestrian since Endgame, so this will be like a nice palate cleanser. So my friend Ben, that rhymes again, that also rhymes, hold on, I'm cooking, rapping is easy, y'all. He asked a few questions, and he first begins with, when will you play Breath of the Wild? And the reason that he cuts off is because for a long time, from like 2019 into 2020, him and a few other Twitter mutuals were lobbying for me to play Breath of the Wild on stream, and I just wasn't going to do it. And it was this long, drawn-out game with a lot of memes and pettiness. Eventually, I did start playing Breath of the Wild. It was really, really fun. I had a great time playing it, and I do regret never finishing it on stream. But I'm going to make up for that. I actually plan on streaming Tears of the Kingdom in the server around either November or December for what it's worth. So we'll see how things are with Book of Showtime by then. End of the year is usually when I wind down. So I think there's a good chance you'll see me playing some Tears of the Kingdom. He then says, rank these horror villains from least favorite to favorite. Freddy, Michael, Jason, Ghostface, Leatherface, Chucky. Okay, so Chucky is last. He just doesn't stand up to the others in my eyes, no pun intended. And I also haven't seen all the Child's Play movies, so I can't really say how good they are exactly. I've seen the first two, Bride of Chucky, of course, and whatever movie, I think it was the fourth one where they're at that military, like, academy for, like, cadets. Whatever cadet training is called in that universe or in our world, I guess. I don't know. Whichever movie that was, I think I've seen bits and pieces of that, but I have not seen anything since Bride of Chucky. If Ben had put Tiffany here, then yeah, we'd be in serious business. We'd be cooking, but Chucky, I'm just not a big fan of him. I find him entertaining, but I'm just not a big fan of him. I wouldn't get excited to see a Child's Play movie. I'm not looking to watch any of the movies, and I also hate facing him in Dead by Daylight. He's a pain. I can't see him over any loops or anything. I was complaining to some of my friends that Sadako, or the Unryo as you know her in Dead by Daylight, was too short to see over some of the loops, and then they put out literally a killer doll. So I regret complaining about it, but you know, I guess they said, you know what, that's short, you thought that was short. Leatherface is after Chucky. This isn't a slight at Leatherface, but when you have the killers listed here today, some of them are just going to stand out more. And like with Chucky, I haven't seen a lot of the movies. You know, I watched the original and the remake in the same night a long time ago. The remake was weird and didn't have the charm of the original. Well, not that it was a charming movie per se, but you guys know what I mean. But you know, I like the original movie. I like the dialogue from the Sawyer family, you know, when they're having dinner with the main girl. It felt interesting, intriguing, even though it was psychopaths talking. There's something about crazy people talking that just grabs you. Maybe that's why you guys watch Book of Showtime. Well, like I said, yes, I have not seen all of the movies, and even if I did, I think he would still be low on this list. Also, the game got old really fast. Even though it was a different type of asymmetrical game, I couldn't get into it. I'm not sure. I don't know. It just wasn't that good. Texas Chainsaw Massacre also came to Xbox Game Pass day one, so a lot of players had access to the game, which you would want for that type of game. You would want a big opening period to get the momentum going. But now, I don't see any news about the game. No one talks about the game. No one even really talked about it when the game first came out. It just felt like it was dead on arrival. It seems like Dead by Daylight will just continue to have this weird monopoly over the asymmetrical horror genre because, man, that game is so flawed. There's a lot of issues with Dead by Daylight, and yet nobody has come along and just said, let's do what they are not doing and just put out a good game. And it's just everybody's failed, you know? I don't know what it is. That being said, the 2v8 mode in Dead by Daylight is the most fun I think I've ever had playing Dead by Daylight. My friend Alex and I, we've been playing that like crazy. It is awesome. I hope they keep it in forever. Now here's where it gets a little tricky. While the Ghostface mask is arguably the most iconic mask in horror, and obviously the way Ghostface goes about their business is pretty elite, Ghostface themselves isn't a dedicated killer. It's a mantle, and I almost want to say like a set of rules. There's been good Ghostfaces and there's been bad Ghostfaces, but I would say that the best spot for Ghostface overall just has to be fourth on this list, and it feels hard to do that because Billy and Stu are pretty iconic in slasher film history. Personally, I feel like the killers who've worn the mask since pale in comparison, and I know that's a tall ask to match up to the original Scream, but no one's done it. I also don't really vibe with any of the movies after the first. I haven't seen Scream 6, but none of them really enthralled me after the first, which I guess you can say that about almost every horror franchise, to be honest. The first one was great, and then after that, it's like, it's whatever. Now, here's where it gets even trickier. I feel that the F-13 movies have an odd trajectory, as the first one is meh, and the second and third are serviceable to okay, but then it kind of goes on a bit of a heater, and the movies get really good for a while. The 2009 remake was great, and the video game, the F-13 video game that came out way back in, 2018, is really fun to play with friends. I wish it wasn't getting shut down. What we have here is actually a case of having a great game with the wrong IP, as due to all the licensing issues, the very infamous license issues around the F-13 franchise, IllFonic aren't allowed to work on the game anymore, and subsequently, Friday the 13th has been delisted and the servers are due to be sunsetted at the end of this year. This was a much deeper game than Dead by Daylight, and while it is a jank game, there's a lot of love put into it, and I think had they been allowed to continue working on this game, F-13 could have challenged Dead by Daylight for the crown. If anyone has this for PlayStation, let's all get together at the end of the year and have one big send-off session. I think that would be awesome. I know Ben is down. But I digress. I'm sorry, guys. I keep getting off on these tangents about asymmetrical horror games. I don't know what it is. Let's return to the ranking. The Nightmare on Elm Street movies are pretty solid because Freddy just has this unmatched charisma and this level of, like, gross, dirty seediness that just kind of gets right, like, very thinly under your skin, like a paper cut, and you just don't get that with any other killer. He is grotesque to be around. Yeah, other killers might just be cutting your head clean off or stabbing you or setting you on fire, but the way Freddy he makes you feel disgusting on the inside before he kills you, and you don't get that with any other killer. He's doing strange things with his powers. The way he plays on people's phobias, the way he, like, breaks down a group, he's built different. While Jason is an elite, unstoppable monster, I have to tie these killers, and I'm not just doing that because they share a movie together. There's too many pros, you know, they're both great killers. Number one has to be the shape, Michael Myers. I feel the music, the consistency throughout the movies, the icon status, the mask, it just puts Michael on a whole different level to me. Out of all the killers' masks, every killer so far has a mask aside from Freddy and Chucky. It's just the best one. I think right next to Ghostface. Those are the two best masks in slasher film horror history, whatever you want to call it. The first two movies are good. I really enjoyed them. Then you have this intriguing Jamie Lloyd saga, which I thought was okay. It was hit or miss, depending on how much you want to buy into the deep lore of Halloween. They were still decent movies, especially compared to the Rob Zombie movies that would come later, which were horrible, outright trash, argue with a wall. If they took the first hour out of that 2007 Halloween movie, it would be a million times better. I didn't even watch the second one. It was just, the first was just so bad. Why would I go watch the second one? Giving a killer an origin story that humanizes him that much, like they did with Michael, it just doesn't do it for me. By the way, I got a funny story about Halloween and kind of the way we react to things as a society. My first Halloween movie was Halloween Resurrection, really good one, and my mom took me to see it in theaters, you know. And later on, as a teen, when I was watching it, there's a premarital coitus scene, and I was like, oh, interesting. I don't remember this, and I realized Mom must have covered my eyes during that scene. That seems extremely backwards to me. That you're fine with me witnessing brutal murders and all types of killing, but boobs and kissing is where the line gets drawn. Make it make sense, Mom. Does anyone else like feel that same way, that that's such a weird thing, that we're so protective of kids when it comes to that stuff, but like murder is fine? I've always thought it was weird, but neither here nor there. Out of all these killers, Michael Myers is also the only one with good movies in recent history. I think the reboot trilogy was really well done, and yes, the finale, Halloween Ends, was very, very polarizing, but I actually like the idea of what they wanted to do. It's a very smart horror movie. Ben finally asks, who would win in a fight, Leon S. Kennedy or Kazuma Kiryu? Give your facts and feats to back up your answer. Doesn't necessarily have to be a kill. A KO will count as a win. So this might legit be the irresistible force meets the immovable object. It's no secret Kiryu is immensely strong. However, Leon Kennedy, out of almost every video game human with no powers, has the most physical gifts I've ever seen. More than Yagami, more than Kiryu, more than Nathan Drake, more than everybody. His strength is tremendous for his weight and build, and he has insane athleticism and reflexes that's shown off many times in Resident Evil 4, where he's had to dodge attacks at the drop of a dime, whether it be an axe, lasers, explosives, anything. Also, what about the times where he has to jump across massive abysses? I don't know if abysses is a word, but there's two of them. There's two huge jumps he has to make. One was on a minecart that was going off the rails. And do you know how geared in you have to be to jump off a minecart going like 80 miles an hour, jump clear across this gorge with no running start, and grab one with one hand and pull yourself up? Do you know how insanely talented you have to be? I'm gushing. I love Leon. He's awesome. He's a badass. He might be the single most dialed in, most locked in, most geared in protagonist we've ever seen. While Kiryu has the raw strength, endurance, and stamina to take down just about everybody in the fight, even Saejima, who's arguably stronger than Kiryu, Leon has faced much bigger and stronger enemies and has come out just fine. It might not have been as smart as Kiryu, but I still gotta go with Leon here. He just outclasses Kiryu in a lot of areas when it comes to a fight. Kiryu might have the heart and the resolve and the drive, but so does Leon, and he's been through worse hells than Kiryu has. So I would say Leon would absolutely cook Kiryu. So my brother Nicholas says, what's the best part of the process? This is actually a really good question because I can tell you what the hardest and easiest parts of the process are, but that wouldn't necessarily translate to the best. I think doing the scripts and getting all the information I need in order is the hardest part, but in reality it's just the most time consuming and not really difficult. Followed by the VO because, you know, I don't record in a booth or anything and I don't have an isolation shield, so I have to deal with noise bugs and sirens, and it's really frustrating. Even this chapter alone, I've had to stop like at least a dozen times because of sirens, and the sirens are a little disrespectful at times. So that's like the hardest part, is just kind of finding the right time to record and hoping you get lucky. Plus it's also summer and I have to turn my air conditioning off, and I'm really sweating up a storm right now while recording this. So yeah, those are like the hardest parts, but you know, once I get everything into Final Cut, it's extremely seamless, which is why sometimes I'll say chapters will be released on Friday and then they're out Wednesday. You know, once I get going, I cruise, dude. I'd have to say the best part, and this is going to be corny and sentimental, but I think the best part might be after all the editing and everything is done and the video is public, it's seeing the feedback. I love seeing that studio icon pop up after an upload. Book of Showtime was designed to get people talking, you know, like I mentioned earlier, and just looking at different points of view, people being excited for me covering a certain concept or mentioning anything, and just saying, hey, this is a nice video, you know, that really means a lot to me. So the comments to me are the best part and the most important part. So Brian says we are 5 years post Avengers Endgame. Do you feel that Marvel hit its peak too quickly with the Thanos saga, or do they have enough in the tank to rejuvenate the franchise and get it back to its former glory? Wow, that is crazy that Avengers Endgame is like only 5 years ago. With like the pandemic, it feels a lot longer, you know. I remember going to see Avengers Endgame. That was like Marvel movies used to be like an event. It didn't feel like I was going to the movies. It felt like I was just at an event, you know. It was a big deal. So this is actually a loaded question, and I'm going to do the best I can in answering it while keeping it brief. The general feeling I see on social media is that the MCU has been mid post Endgame. I don't think that MCU has been mid. I think it certainly has lost a lot of juice, but I wouldn't say it's been bad overall. I will say that it's been very pedestrian, with No Way Home and Multiverse of Madness leaving some potential on the table, Ant-Man 3 and Thor 4 being very poor films, that kind of rhymes, and the Marvels being polarizing. Now, I like the Marvels, you know, I'm a big Miss Marvel fan, but I can see why people would dislike it, but that's for another time. I don't want to say that it peaked, because we have a lot of Marvel storylines to adapt that can be really good. There's a lot of important characters with great arcs that are still alive. The issue that lies there, however, most of the comic arcs get plenty of time. You know, when they're comic books, they get plenty of time to develop, and they start and end at their own pace. I thought the Civil War movie was great, but it didn't feel as good as the comic, because obviously you only have 2 to 3 hours to start and end the storyline, which is tough for any adapted media to do. And there's also a lot of characters that you just couldn't bring into it, so you have to just establish everybody and then end it by the end of the movie. There's too much. I think the MCU has a lot to do in terms of establishing a new villain, as right now we don't know what's going on with Kang and the whole Jonathan Majors situation, which that's another topic for another time. So unless they like decide to pivot to Ultron, they gotta start planting more seeds for the Avengers movie's big bad. I do think they have a lot in the tank, but it's going to take some time, and also it's on us as fans to be a little patient. You know, Rome was not built in one day. They had a tremendous arc for 10 years, and it's like to redo that again is a very tall task. And like I said, you got to be patient. I also feel that with the introduction of mutants into the MCU, maybe we see a scenario where the canon gets reset, because, you know, a big problem with these movies, and you saw a little bit of that with any live action series, you know, The Walking Dead had this issue. Eventually the actors are going to want to move on, so maybe Jean Grey just blows everybody up and we start fresh. Now guys, real quick, I recorded this VL before the announcement that Robert Downey Jr. was cast as Dr. Doom and that he'll be in the next Avengers movies, and I wanted to just quickly jump back in the booth and record my feelings on the situation. I feel that what I said before still holds weight, so I don't want to scrap that section entirely, but this is a huge deal and I don't want to wait until the next subchapter to speak about it. I am not 100% on board with the casting of Robert Downey Jr., you know. I just feel like it's done to get more people to watch Robert is a huge star, but it's not like a situation where you had like Michael B. Jordan going from playing the Human Torch to playing Killmonger. This is the same universe, and it's not like Robert Downey Jr. played a small role. He played basically the main character for the Infinity Saga as Iron Man, so I find it a little strange, no pun intended. I hope he does a good job. I'm going to try to reserve judgment as much as I can until I actually see some trailers, which won't be for a long time. And I hope it's not going to be immersion breaking, as, you know, Robert Downey Jr. portrayed Tony Stark so naturally. He was one of the best castings in comic media history, in my opinion. Now, on to Doctor Doom. I love Doctor Doom. I think he's a perfect villain for the Avengers, and he might be synonymous with the Fantastic Four, but he has terrorized the entire Marvel universe. Like, he's been him many times. He's easily a top 5 Marvel villain. I don't know who the other 4 are, but he is up there. And I love playing him in the Marvel vs. Capcom games. He was amazing in Ultimate Alliance, you know, and I hope that he has a skin in the Fortnite Marvel season. He's being teased, and I know he's going to have some presence in that season, but he could just be a boss. But I'm hoping he gets a skin. I was really upset that I could not get one of my favorite Marvel characters. Finally, and fittingly, the man who began Book of Showtime by asking us where Steph Curry lies amongst the greatest point guards, the Dark Man asks these questions. First, he asked who would win in a battle of the Dream Team versus the Redeem Team with every player in their prime. In most cases, I would just go with the modern team without batting an eye. I would just say Redeem Team, next question. But it's a little closer than you think, but where I think the 08 team has the edge are on 2 distinct areas. The first is speed and athleticism. I've mentioned in the past that modern NBA is played at a much more faster athletic clip. The bigs of 92, they're great, but they will be gassed and abused trying to keep up with like guys like Dwight Howard, Carlos Boozer, Chris Bosh, and even LeBron if you want to stretch him to the 4. You know, the spacing they would have would be unrivaled. The 92 Dream Team has no chance in that regard. The second area, just raw offense. Like I said, the Redeem Team has the advantage with the speed and athleticism, and the only 3 people from the Dream Team that to me can match the Redeem Team on that department are Jordan, Bird, and Magic. In a half-court set, I would say, you know, it's pretty even, but fast break, full court press, no chance for the Dream Team. And let's, again, just look at the raw scoring talent the 2018 possesses. Kobe, Wade, Melo, D12, Bosh, all these guys get buckets. These are bucket getters. I'm sorry, it's the 08 team for me. I didn't even mention that you have Jason Kidd and Chris Paul running the point, and you can even throw LeBron in that point too. LeBron is just the greatest. You mean, throw him in anywhere, honestly. But you have 3 of the most elite floor generals, 2 of the best pure point guards, and then LeBron James, and they're just leading the best scorers of all time. Come on, come on. Don't even try me with that. Next, who would win in a versus battle between Drake and Kendrick Lamar? I'm gonna be honest. I've never seen a versus battle, but I am familiar with how it's done. It's basically 2 artists going hit for hit. It's like the DJ scene from Scott Pilgrim. I'm gonna have to go with Kendrick for free. I can't think of a single song that Drake has where I just feel electric. Don't get me wrong, you know, Drake has some great songs. He has some bops. He has better club music. You know, I don't mean that in a mean way, but it's like I definitely see Drake getting more play in a party setting than Kendrick Lamar. It's just like, for me, from the first few notes of a Kendrick track, I'm ready to jump out of my seat. Alright, N95, King Kuta, Swimming Pools, the list goes on. Heck, I ain't gonna lie, I've even cried to some Kendrick tracks. This music just resonates with the soul sometimes. So yeah, man, K-Dot all day. Finally, better song featuring Bone Thugs and Harmony, Notorious Thugs or Thug Love. For those who haven't heard those songs, Notorious Thug is with Biggie and Thug Love is with Tupac, which is why he asked this question. This is close. I like the beat of Notorious Thugs more, but the lyrics of Thug Love have a little bit of an edge to me. I think that Tupac is better than Biggie, and I know some people might say, Nori, you're in New York, how can you say that? Hey, listen, I'm not with the coast to coast tribalism, all right? I think Tupac is better. But you know, one night I do need to sit and listen to more of Tupac's music and more of Biggie's music to see who's the better now that I'm a lot older. But I digress. I would have to say Notorious Thugs has the edge to me, but it's very slim. The beat and the melody, they just feel better to me. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this long chapter. If you thugged it out all the way to the end, thank you so much. It really means a lot to me. You know, Book of Showtime is something that I almost gave up on a few times because, you know, it just wasn't going the way I wanted to, but I was patient. I thank you guys for being patient. I took a lot of breaks. I was MIA for a while many times because of my health issues and my vices. I've talked about that at the beginning of this video way back, almost like an hour ago. But I want to thank you guys so much for sticking with me. I want to thank, obviously my brother, the Dark Man, for just being awesome, being a big supporter, just the way he champions my videos. It really means a lot to me. I want to thank my friends Amy and Ben for always giving me good questions for these videos. And most importantly, I want to thank Venetia, who has been a big part of Book of Showtime. The fact that she is a commissioned artist, okay? So the fact that she, out of the kindness of her heart, just decided to upgrade the Book of Showtime logo just meant so much to me. She comments on almost every video. She's always liking and supporting and very engaging in the server. So she's just a tremendous human being. She's been a great friend to me for about a decade. So Venetia, I love you to death, sis, and just thank you for all your support with Book of Showtime. I want to thank everybody who has supported me through this journey so far. Here's to another 2 years, guys. Let's go. Let's ride Book of Showtime till the wheels fall off. All right. Inshallah, I will see you in the next chapter.